Gerard Gallant got fired. So let's talk about the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah, it's a weird subject, you know. I don't really want to be the guy who's like, oh, anything happens in the NHL. How does that affect my favorite Vancouver team? You know the meme that people talk about with the Toronto-based media? Saying things like, oh, anything happens in the NHL. How can we make this about the Leafs? I don't want to be like that. But I think this Gerard Gallant thing has so many ties to what I want to talk about with the Canucks today that I have to brand this video like that. Gerard Gallant got fired, so let's talk about the Canucks. And I wanted to talk about the Canucks because there are a few things that we can take out of the pages of the Golden Knights and apply them to our Vancouver Canucks situation that we have here on the West Coast, north of the border. So let's just go over what happened. It's pretty self-explanatory. Gerard Gallant got fired by the Vegas Golden Knights, and they have hired Peter DeBoer as their coach now. It's very interesting because if you take a look at the NHL standings at the moment, the Vegas Golden Knights are not really that far off. They're tied with the Vancouver Canucks for the wildcard spot. They are literally tied for a playoff spot right now. They lost against Buffalo yesterday. They've lost 4 in a row in regulation, actually, and with that, they've officially fired Gallant. Their coach, who was sent over to the All-Star game because his team had the highest winning percentage out of all the teams in the Pacific once the cutoff date was announced, so he's out. And in fact, there are a few angles that I wanted to tackle with this. First off, this was from our Canucks. This was brought up on the subreddit. The Vegas Golden Knights are 0-4 and have replaced their coach ever since they tweeted oof at the Canucks. If you're wondering what exactly does that mean, back on January the 7th when the Canucks were playing the Lightning, back when the Lightning scored that 9-2 goal, the Canucks posted on Twitter, the Lightning score, it's 9-2 Tampa Bay, and the Golden Knights replied, oof. Ever since then, they're 0-4, they fired their coach, and the rest is history. Obviously, that's just joking around, but I wanted to get into the actual angles that I wanted to talk about. First off, this was kind of announced as a performance-based move. The implication is that the Golden Knights are trying to shake up their lineup, and they're unsatisfied with how they've been playing as of late. As a result, they fire the coach and hire Peter DeBoer instead. So this is kind of the thing that I wanted to take a look at first and foremost, because this is something that a lot of people I've seen online, a lot of people in the media are kind of saying, isn't that kind of an overreaction? You're literally tied for a playoff spot. You are in a position where the team could probably afford to lose 10, 15, 20 more games on the season, and you're tied for a playoff spot. And you fire this guy who, in his first season, brought you guys to the Stanley Cup Finals. You fired this guy who, over the past few years, has honestly had such a really good track record that it's crazy to think that he's gone. You lost in the first round last year, you lost in the finals 2 years ago. This is the guy who took you there, from an expansion team, from literally nothing, to the Stanley Cup Finals. And he's gone because you guys have lost 4 games in a row. To me, that seems like an overreaction, and to many other people, it does seem like an overreaction. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, I haven't been watching the 4 games where the Vegas Golden Knights have lost in a row, but on paper, there doesn't seem to be a good enough justification to say, yeah, it's a performance-based move, we're unsatisfied with how we've been playing, therefore, fire the coach. This is why I wanted to relate this to the Vancouver Canucks, because this is kind of the same situation that the Canucks were in a few weeks ago, where the Canucks were on that losing streak and some people, albeit a very vocal minority, were calling for the axe on Travis Green's coaching tenure. This is why we didn't fire Coach Green back then. This is why the Vancouver Canucks stuck it out with Travis Green. Because if you take a look at how the Vegas Golden Knights have handled it, this is an overreaction. Firing the guy after 4 losses in a row when you're still tied for a wild card. You have so much room to go ahead, win a few more games, and eventually get back into the playoffs that a firing now just seems really weird. And you could argue, oh, Travis Green hasn't had the best Canucks team. Oh, Travis Green hasn't coached this team to a Stanley Cup final, so it's a different scenario. But the outcome remains the same. The guy's fired. That's the outcome. If we fired Travis Green, he would have been fired. That's the outcome. It's the same outcome here, regardless of the build-up and the circumstance. And that's why, to me, I was never on the fire Green train. I was never one to believe that firing Green was the right answer, even when we were losing all those games in a row. Terrible losing streaks. Terrible streaks to start off the year. Never once did I think, okay, Travis Green kind of has to get the can. It's his time to go. That was never what I thought. And that's why I never made any videos about it. And I know people were talking in my comments saying, oh, Lego, you should make a video about this. No, I didn't, because that's not something that I wanted to actually entertain. That's not an idea that I thought was even plausible. And this Vegas thing, where they fired their own coach after losing 4 in a row, kinda shows the aftermath as to what a Travis Green firing would have been like. It would have been people saying, yeah, it's kind of an overreaction. It would have been people saying, yeah, well, they're a young team. They're not supposed to be amazing. It would have been people saying, this team has honestly still been pretty good. And if you take a look at how things are right now, the Canucks are literally in a wildcard spot, so I think it has worked out just fine. Furthermore, let's talk about one of these other angles that revolves around the Vancouver Canucks and Travis Green and their coach and everything. The Vegas Golden Knights fired their coach. What does that mean? Their coach that was going to the All-Star game as the Pacific coach is no longer going to be going. So, what's going to happen then? Are you kind of seeing where I'm getting at? Does this mean Travis Green is going to be the coach of the Pacific? Now, it's really interesting because this was posted on Twitter too. I'll just read this tweet over from Thomas Drance. Travis Green, the coach of the Vancouver Canucks, who were second in points percentage at the cutoff date, and Rick Toche, whose team is currently in first place for Pacific Division points percentage. They're close friends. Their teams play each other tomorrow. If the NHL was pro wrestling, the winner of Thursday's game would get to coach the Pacific at the All-Star game. Now, obviously, that is just joking around. NHL is not like pro wrestling, but still, that kind of presents itself too, where the NHL has to take a look at this, say, okay, the guy that we had coaching the Pacific got fired. He's not affiliated with this specific team anymore. So, who do they get now? Do they get the Arizona coach, whose team is currently first place in win percentage, or do they get Travis Green, whose team was second in points percentage back when Vegas was first? If this happens, the Vancouver Canucks will have 4 people at the All-Star game. I say people and not players, because Travis Green is very obviously not a player. When was the last time that happened? I looked this up back when Quinn Hughes made the All-Star game. Canucks All-Star selections. Let's look at that on Wikipedia. I believe there was a year back in 2012, something like that. Here, All-Star game selections. We'll take a look at it over here. The last time the Vancouver Canucks had 3 players and a coach go to the All-Star game was 2011. Kessler, Sedin, and Vigneault. Then you go back to 2003, that's when it happened again. That's when we had Todd Bertuzzi, Jovanovski, Naslin, and Mark Crawford go. Those were the only 2 times in Canucks history where 3 players and a coach went. And depending on how the NHL tries to decide it now, whether it's the Arizona coach or the Canucks coach, we could potentially have it again this year. Imagine that. Petey, Markey, Huggy, and Travis Green all over there. Oh boy, that sounds interesting. Wow, we're at the end of the gameplay. So, see, this is exactly what I was talking about. This was recorded in 2 takes. I was thinking about the Vegas Golden Knights firing their coach, and this is how it relates to the Vancouver Canucks. Hope you enjoyed this video, social.trolls99, and bye.